This is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Here is your host, Kevin Captain.
Good morning and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain with the county's Community Information Division. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Volusia Today is made possible by our sponsors, the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. This morning I'm joined by co-host Clayton Jackson. Good morning, Clayton.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Oh, doing absolutely fabulous. We have a busy week that we're going to talk about here in a minute to conclude Severe Weather Awareness Week. Woo, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
But we also got some other exciting community events coming up.
We do. You know, we've got, we're going to be coming into the race. We're in the race season, and then right after that, we're going to have the bike week. And so, you know, with those events and the warmer weather coming up, we've got a lot of preparing to do. So the good thing is, Clayton, today in the studio, we've got Mr. Preparation himself, Preparation J.
Better than
Jim.
Preparation H.
Exactly.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So we've got Jim Judge. He is the department director for the new Department of Emergency Services with the county. And he, as everyone knows, he's our former emergency management director. And now you're still wearing that hat as interim. So, Jim, you've been through a lot. I mean, everyone knows. How are you holding up?
Doing great, Kevin. Doing good. You know, every day is a wonderful day, you know, as long as we're on the right side of the turf. But actually just doing very well, thank you.
That's good. You're always a positive guy. Coming into, you know, we're into February, and we've gone through or are going through Severe Weather Awareness Week. And during that week, the National Weather Service and the state of Florida and the Florida Division of Emergency Management, they have themes for topics for each day. If we could just go through them, I know one of the big ones, and maybe not really your wheelhouse, but rip currents. That's certainly one that is on the toolkit for this year's Severe Weather Awareness Week.
It really is. You know, and rip currents happen all year long, you know, and they're actually quite dangerous. I remember back, oh gosh, it's been about, 6 years ago, Memorial Weekend, we had 4 drownings and about 140 rescues, and the rip currents were severe. So rip currents happen all the time, and essentially, you know, you've got a situation where you've got a narrow strip of water moving very quickly from the shoreline through the surf and even out beyond the breakers, and it can move 5 to 8 miles an hour, you know, really faster than even an Olympian can swim.
Yeah.
So it's about, you know, don't panic. And how do you deal with it? You know, so you swim parallel to the beach and, you know, simply get out of that rip. You can tread water while you're out there. You know, you can even float and even, you know, wave to people on the beach. And, of course, we always say, you know, swim near a lifeguard.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But, you know, one of the things that I do is I go to the beach app. We've got a wonderful app that pictures, and you can look at the conditions and decide what part of the beaches are crowded, where you want to go. But then again, as soon as I get to the beach, I look for the color of the flags.
Absolutely.
Is it a red day? Is it a red flag day, which, you know, conditions are serious? And then you get the yellow, you know, so you got red, yellow, and green, right? So red is, ooh, that's very dangerous. Yellow, well, you got to use some caution. Green means there's a low risk, but not a zero risk. So there's always the chance for rip currents. And then, of course, that purple flag, which means that, you know, there could be man of war, there could be jellyfish, and those really are painful.
They are.
You know?
And it's interesting to talk to Jim about this, because who'd have thought that the Severe Weather Awareness Week would put rip currents in it. And we're usually always talking to you about weather, not rip currents. So but it's all germane. It all makes sense.
It really is. You know, in growing up in South Florida, we always called it undertow. Ooh, you know, I remember my mother now warning us as we would go to the beach, be careful of the undertow. So that's essentially rip currents, you know, as we know today.
Exactly.
And your staff did a wonderful job of disseminating information on the Volusia County Emergency Management Facebook page this week to, again, spread awareness about the severe weather. And, you know, one of the kind of tidbits of information that I didn't know this for our listeners while we started out with rip currents, but actually the Florida Division of Emergency Management has identified that rip currents actually cause more deaths than any of the other events that were covered this week. So
it's the truth, very, very dangerous. And again, it's an all year round. With Severe Weather Awareness Week, we're talking about, conditions that really happen in the end of January, certainly February, March, April, and well into May. And that's when we get, and I know we're going to talk about some of these others, but thunderstorms. So as we get that severe weather that, those fronts that do move through Florida, we get the strong thunderstorms. So along with that, of course, you get the lightning. And I don't like lightning, because it's so unpredictable where it's going to strike. So when they say thunder roars, go indoors, I'm the guy that follows that very carefully. And then, of course, along with those thunderstorms, we get rain. And sometimes an extensive amount of rain, and of course it's not one or two, but we could have multiple fronts come through, even nor'easters that we're familiar with. So, and then the lightning, because again, you never know where it's going to strike. And, even the Red Cross, and I did some research for the Red Cross, just validating the information that they put out that you should not be in the shower, taking a bath, or even around running water. And yes, in fact, doing some research on that, if lightning does strike, near your home, it actually can travel up through the pipes and right into the shower or right into the bathtub.
So step one is to go inside.
Yes.
And step two is probably stay away from the bathtub and the shower until it passes
again,
along.
the Red Cross wanted to validate that recommendation was still valid. And I did extensive research, and absolutely still just as prevalent today as it has been for many years.
No, the other thing about lightning I've heard is that once, obviously, you see the lightning, you hear it, and you can do that delay and determine how many seconds away the storm is and that sort of thing. But the lightning can occur like quite a distance from where the actual storm is.
It's the truth. If you hear thunder, then you're still within the potential for a lightning strike. It wasn't long ago, we were camping up at Tomoka State Park. And, the weather was beginning to move in, but it was still a sunny day. And there was a lightning bolt that hit within about 100 yards of us. And
wow.
It was the first lightning strike that we had heard, and it was... It got our attention. We very quickly took shelter, but and of course, even my paramedic career have responded to lightning strikes from individuals that were on a lawnmower, quite a ways from the rain, but yet not out of danger from the lightning. So, again, if you hear thunder, and if you haven't heard it for 30 minutes, then you're pretty safe to go outside. But you know what? We still see people in swimming pools. We still see folks on the beach when we have a lightning storm, and people do lose their lives every year due to lightning strikes.
And all this makes a ton of sense, because I remember when I was a kid growing up playing football, we'd hear thunder, be able to rain, but we didn't see any lightning. We always fuss our coaches like, do we have to go in? We don't see any lightning. But all this actually makes sense now you brought this up.
And I'm not a risk taker. I've been in a public safety since I got out of high school, and I've seen so many bad things happen to wonderful people out of the blue. Mm-hmm. So, don't risk it. Yeah. It's just not worth it. It's not worth your life, not worth your family's life. And even if you survive a lightning strike, oftentimes, it's a lifelong injuries that linger, from that incident.
This is the time of year where you mentioned that it's the squall lines, those like high pressure systems coming up against a low pressure system, and you got the squall line, and that's really why we're talking about Severe Weather Awareness Week, and this is that time of year. But besides the lightning, those squall lines also have a high probability of bringing in tornadoes.
They do. And we refer like straight line winds. And those straight line winds that come in with that, and they put the weather warnings out on straight line winds. And quite honestly, it can create so much damage that people feel that there was a tornado. And once we look at it, no, there was no tornado. They saw nothing on the radar, and no one caught a glimpse of it. But it's just those strong straight line winds that can be up 80, 90, even 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. So you can have roofs blown off, you can have debris, trees down, and it looks like a tornado, but in fact, it's those straight line winds.
And also kind of like a scary fact for our listeners, and I didn't know this, so again, I was reading up on Severe Weather Awareness Week, again, that's a mouthful, that when you think of tornadoes, you think more like the Midwest. out that area. But actually,
Kansas, right?
Yeah, out there. Uh-huh.
Dorothy.
But at the same time, is the data says that Florida is actually the 6th highest ranked state for tornadoes, and that actually bumps up to number 2 when you factor in tornado per square mile, only behind Kansas. So that blew my mind. I did not know that.
You know, Florida is just a risk for so many things. You know, we're the lightning capital of the world. You know, we always try to hide that, the shark bite capital of the world. But there's so many different things that we deal with in Florida, and certainly here in Volusia County. But you're right. You know, we had that tornado that impacted DeLand not long ago, and that was an EF2.
Yep, I remember that one.
And oftentimes, you know, they're an EF1 or EF2 tornado, so they're on the low end. But, you know, it was yesterday, or just this past couple of weeks, was Groundhog Day. So I remember very well, I was over running EMS in Lake and Sumter counties, and we had the Groundhog Day tornado. We had 21 fatalities and a tremendous amount of, that was an EF3 tornado, tremendous amount of damage over quite a distance, which is unusual. But oftentimes, again, we do get those EF1s, 2s. And here's the thing about tornadoes is they can occur literally any time of the day or night, but the frequency is generally between 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. So that's the point where, to make sure you have the weather alert system, you download our app. You can even go to the Red Cross, has wonderful tornado apps to where you're going to get those warnings. And of course, I've got them all. So when there's a tornado warning, there's bells and whistles and everything going off at my house. But again, you don't want to get that warning. So if you're at home and you're in bed and middle of the night, that you have the time to take those precautions.
You know, we're always talking about the apps, and the advent of mobile phones now make it easier for us to receive those types of alerts. But I've also been in conversation with you about you expressing the importance of the basics, and sometimes those basics are an old I think it's an analog radio, or the weather radio. You've got one, and they're very inexpensive, but yet they're not going to have the failure rate maybe that some of this new technology might.
It's the truth, you know, and they do tests all through the week to make sure that the radio is functioning properly, and it will wake you up. You know, again, we keep it near the bedroom, and if my wife is in there during one of the tests, and it goes off and scares her half to death.
Does she hit you?
She unplugs it and shoves it in a drawer. So I come home, honey, where's the weather alert radio? You know, I plug it back in and, you know, make sure that it's up and operating. Because, again, at night, you know, if it goes off or you get those warnings, you may just have a very short period of time. And, of course, there's a tornado watch. That means that, you know, conditions or the potential for tornado activity. You know, the National Weather Service sees circulation up in the atmosphere. But when you get to that tornado warning, that means that they've seen something, either the National Weather Service on radar, or someone has actually spotted one on the ground. So when you get to the warning, you know, the warnings are always the worst, whether it's a hurricane warning, a tornado warning, or severe weather, severe thunderstorm warning. So that's when conditions are happening right now.
And then one event that always takes place during Severe Weather Awareness Week is the statewide tornado drills.
Yes.
And, you know, that took place on Wednesday of this week. And, you know, we hope that as many schools, agencies, you know, even businesses, that they participated. If somebody did not participate this year, what would be your selling point to them for the 2024 when Tornado Day is covered? Like why they should participate in the tornado drill?
Well, you know, because we have the potential for tornadoes. We've had tornadoes over time here in Volusia County, and you know, you just never know what's around the corner. So, and you don't really have to wait to you know, to next year to the great tornado drill. You can, you know, go to our Volusia County Emergency Management app, and there's a lot of weather information there. You can download the Red Cross app that deals with tornadoes, or even just do a little research online with the National Weather Service to understand the conditions and the things that you can do, you know, in your home. You know, if you've got the lowest level of your home, an interior room, away from windows, away from exterior walls, could be a bathroom, could be a closet, could be a hallway, and you know, and even put a bicycle helmet on, you know, to protect your noggin, you know, for something might fall down. So, you know, just taking those simple precautions could very well save your life.
We're talking with Jim Judge, the Emergency Services Department Director for Volusia County. Let's take a quick break, and Jim, let's come back and talk a little bit about the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season.
Oh, boy.
We'll be right back.
Subscribe to the Volusia County YouTube channel.
Let's go!
There are so many great places to explore.
And things to learn.
We have countless features showcasing history, nature, wildlife, and recreation. Subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Go ahead, subscribe.
But that's not it. There's more. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and fully explore.
Score!
Get ready, it's time for another Volusia County Fire Rescue Fire Safety Tip.
Hey kids, safety in the kitchen is important for you too. So mom and dad, when you're in the kitchen cooking, make sure you create a 3-foot safety zone around the stovetop to keep the children safe too.
Go to volusia.org and check out the virtual classroom. It's made for kids, it's awesome, very informative, and it's fun. Check it out at volusia.org.
Practicing good fire safety habits saves lives.
We're back. I'm Clayton Jackson along with Kevin Captain, and you're listening to Volusia Today, a public information program brought to you by the County of Volusia. So far, we've covered tornadoes, rip currents, thunderstorms, and lightning. Now let's get into what Florida is known for when people think about bad weather, hurricanes. Now, a lot of people in our community are still suffering the terrible effects from hurricanes Ian and Nicole. But unfortunately, we're about 4 months away from the 2023 hurricane season. So, Jim, I know we're still in recovery mode, but we got to be forward thinking about starting to prepare now for 2023. So, tell us how people should start preparing right now.
Well, it's the truth. I would start off with flood insurance. Just because you're not mandated through your mortgage company to have flood insurance doesn't mean that you shouldn't get it. When you're not mandated or your mortgage company, you're not in a high risk or a flood zone, it's still important to get that. And of course, we learned very well through Ian when we had 18, 20, 21 inches of rain, and a lot of people that didn't have to have it were flooded. And so very devastating, very expensive, to go back in and try to make those repairs to your home. And, so with hurricane season, not far off. But then again, look at what's happening around the country. This past winter, the past months, we've had severe weather in California. They called it the bomb, coming in that was the equivalent of, and then here just recently, the severe weather up to the northeast, tremendous amount of snow and severe weather. So, conditions just are changing, whether you believe in global warming or climate change or whatever, it's happening. We dealt with it through Ian and Nicole. Look what's happening around the United States. Look what's happening around the world. So as we look forward to the next hurricane season, there's never not a good chance to get prepared. So if you're prepared for these other severe weather events, you're also going to be prepared for hurricane season. So never too late to get ready. But now is a good time. Having come out of these two storms, I think people are going to take it much more seriously and prepare even to a greater extent than what they maybe had in the past.
Jim, there's a lot of science that goes into the forecasting of hurricanes. And about a year ago this time, I remember we were talking about the forecast for the 22 season, and they said, I think they anticipated like 14 storms and a couple of them to become major hurricanes. But the season started out somewhat quiet, and then it picked up as late fall came in. Again, now with the 23 season, how do they actually forecast it? What science goes into it? I mean, we're seeing that it's got some degree of accuracy there. And is it the crystal ball that you got at home? Are you giving them the science?
There's so many things that they look at. They look at the temperature of the water. They look at the salinity of the water. They look at what they call the conveyor belt, which the water, the jet stream. They look at the Gulf Stream as it moves to the north, and then it sinks and then comes. So there's so many things that they do look at. And again, the water temperature is a big one, the salinity. But then also looking at the Sahel region of South Africa, because that's where a lot of those Cape Verde storms, they come off the coast of Africa and then they come into the Sweet area, which, oftentimes they will move toward the United States. But of course, I would anticipate that we're still in a La Nina pattern. And La Nina is where we get those winds blowing from east to west, which is not favorable for us because then it has a tendency to push those storms toward the U.S. coast. So We will wait. Usually the Colorado State University will usually come out in the beginning of May with their forecast. And then they will update that forecast multiple times as we go through the season. The National Weather Service will usually come out the very end of May, beginning of June with their forecast. And then there's AccuWeather and many different weather services and their predictions for the upcoming year. But there's a lot of science that goes into it, lots of things that they look at to determine what the potential is. And of course, Kevin, as you mentioned, the 2022 season was expected to be a very much above average year. And in fact, it was almost an average year. We did typically, there's 14 named storms, which is what we had. Usually there are 6 hurricanes. 3 of those could be Category 3 or greater. So with this season, we actually had the 14 named storms, but there were 7 actual hurricanes, and there were 2 Cat 3 or greater. And of course, Ian was that Cat 3. And then of course we had Nicole, and then there was another hurricane that did cross over South Florida from the Gulf across the southern end of Florida and then back into the Atlantic. So, as we always say, like Hurricane Andrew, it only takes one. And of course, we got hit really hard. And we're still going to be, recovering from those 2 storms, for many more months to come. And then, of course, with the hurricane season, have no idea what this season's going to bring. But we're already in emergency management. We're already scheduling training with our Citizen Information Center. We're doing EOC orientation. How the Emergency Operations Center works. So we've got individuals that are retiring, new people coming into new positions to make sure that they're up and ready and trained and ready to go. So lots of work for us, over the next few months as we prepare for hurricane season and, what may come our way.
Yep. And before we move on to today's topic and the final topic, wildfires, I'm a big proponent of flood insurance, and I think it was our friends at FEMA who actually said that 40% of the homes that flooded in Florida were actually not in designated flood zones. Yeah. As well, just want to remind our listeners, if you are considering flood insurance, those policies usually don't take effect until 30 days after you sign the policy. So when Jim Judge comes on TV and says, here comes a hurricane, if you call your insurance company, they're probably going to say, well, we'll sell it to you, but it's not going to take effect for 30 days. So this is the time, like you said, to start planning for this season's.
It's the truth. And just because it hasn't flooded doesn't mean it won't flood. If you get back-to-back systems like we had with Ian and Nicole, and, even in the 04 storms, you get 4 storms or 3 storms in our area back-to-back, but there was also the 4th storm, that went into the Escambia County area. So, anything can happen, and we just need to be prepared for it. The better prepared we are, the better we're going to deal with the conditions that do come our way. But again, flood insurance is so important.
And speaking of preparation, Clayton just kind of mentioned the wildfires, and you were here in the wildfires in '98. But how do you prepare for the wildfires?
Well, it's good to really understand the weather conditions. And, we talked about lightning, and oftentimes lightning strikes will spawn those wildfires. But then, of course, we get into May, June, we get, July, we get those very dry, very hot conditions that are conducive for the potential for a wildfire. So, we have, and I would tell you that our county fire services, we have Chief Smoke.
I know, what a name, huh?
What a name, right?
Perfect name.
He does an incredible job, monitoring the drought index, working with we have meetings with the Forest Service, and then we bring everybody to the table, the fire departments, all the players that are going to be involved in a potential wildfire. And we review the conditions, we review the resources that are available to fight those fires. And Forestry Service is always at the table, of course, with us. And then we also look at not only what we have on the ground, but what air assets, helicopters and other types of aircraft that can help extinguish those fires. But, once things get moving and the wind picks up, because we have a lot of forests, and I was in Flagler County. I was deployed from actually Indian River County and led an ambulance strike team up to Flagler County and helped evacuate a lot of facilities up there during those 98 wildfires. But again, around your home, clearing around, 30, 40 feet around your home. And what they learned from the wildfires in California, we love our mulch. you know?
Yeah.
So when you pile mulch up around the house, it looks very decorative, but you know, a spark hits it, it's going to ignite.
It's fire hazard. Yeah.
And then also, you know, cleaning your gutters. You know, I mean, you got to be careful. If you're elderly, you know, hire somebody to do it for you. But when you get those pine needles and you get those leaves and stuff up in the gutters, it doesn't take much of a spark to set that off. So, you know, mulch is great. But there are other things that you can put down that are better than that protect your home. And then, you know, we put out the county fire and put out a lot of information during that time of the year to make sure that the residents are aware of the conditions and protective actions that people can take to mitigate the possibility of you know, experiencing a home fire because of the wildfires in the area.
And before we take a break, real quick, you were talking about protection. Why are prescribed burns good?
They're wonderful because they go in and they clean out the underbrush. And actually, fire in Florida is very good because there are plants that fire activates the seeds, and then the seeds grow. So really, wildfires in Florida are a big part of our ecology. They're a big part of very necessity, you know, because the squirrels, the birds, you know, it cleans
natural
out
process.
Exactly. It cleans out the underbrush and all that. But the wildfires and, you know, even around the Emergency Operations Center to the north and south, they do a lot of protective actions in a lot of those.
We'll take our last break real quick and come back and close today's show with Jim Judge. Stay with us. We're talking with Jim Judge. He's the Emergency Services Director with Volusia County. Jim, I like to close the show and always say, help your neighbors. And I get that sort of philosophy from you because you often mention when it comes to emergencies, help your neighbors.
Boy, it's the truth, Kevin. You know, I've mentioned many times on the show our next door neighbor, Gertrude Butler, and Gertrude just turned 92. You know, wonderful neighbor, wonderful friend. She's part of our family. So, you know, reach out, get to know your neighbors, and be there to help them through the tough times.
Thanks, Jim. With that, we'll close Volusia Today. Take care, stay safe, and help your neighbors.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.